Hello and welcome to Sweet Ears. I'm your host, Nozugo, and I'm very happy to be with you guys today. Today we have an amazing guest, and we're so excited for today's episode. Very unusual, but very good. We're gonna deliver. You know us. Let's dig in. So excited. Hi, hello, and welcome. Welcome again. Today, as I said, we're having an amazing guest and pastor, Muruti. Welcome, Muruti.
Thank you for having me, Nos. I'm not sure about the amazing part though, but I feel honored by the invite. Yeah, my name is Tshepo Tshabalala. I lead a ministry in Benoni. It's a Riverflow City Church. We've been running for like 5 years, going into 6 years now.
That's
by
amazing.
the grace of God, yes, by the grace of God, yeah. So yeah, it's been quite a journey.
It's been a good journey.
Yes, it's been a good journey. It's been a good journey where I've seen the hand of the Lord in an amazing way, you know. And when I look at it now, going back, I can trace God. I can trace God in the story of my life, even from the time when I was not born again. Actually, I can trace the hand of God in my life. And one of the things that I like saying is that, or rather, how I premise or how I contextualize this whole story is through the book of Psalms 91. You know. When you look into it, it says the heavens, they declare the glory of God, meaning the heavens have a language, and its language is to declare the glory of God. And they say the sky, it shows forth his handiworks. And day unto day, it utters speech, night unto night, it reveals knowledge. And verse 3 says, there is no speech or people whose language they don't hear. Meaning, you can be saved or not saved, you can be Japanese, you can, whatever nationality you are, the language of God's existence, everybody hears it. Everybody hears it.
You can't deny him.
Yeah, you can't deny him. So, yeah.
Sure.
So, yeah, I don't know. So
let's dig in.
Okay.
So, Muruti, where did it all begin? Please take us through your salvation journey.
Okay. All right. Well, I was fortunate enough to be from a family that got to accept Jesus as their Lord and Savior. And then there was a prayer that we used to attend. I would go with them. I received my first prophetic word there. I was 16, I think, or even younger. I'm not sure. I received I think I was younger. I received my first prophetic word there. There was a woman who was ministering, leading the prayer. So she identified me and said, there's something of God in you. At that time, it didn't make sense to me. You know, I didn't even understand what is a thing of God. Then you know how life is. Went back to the world and forgot about God. Started growing up, doing my own things. And as I grew older in my teen years, I had a friend who was saved. So he invited me to church. Actually, the story of seeing the tangible or the visible hand of God, or rather the supernatural, started there from that day. Exactly. You know, when my friend invited me to come to his church, that day I remember it was in Davidton. We went. They had a taxi, so we went.
Davidton has
we were in Davidton, so we went. And as the minister was ministering, he said something very profound. He said, if you want to see that God exists, come. He was making an altar call. His words verbatim were like, if you want to see that God exists, come. And then I went to say, okay. It was me and a friend of mine. We went to the altar call, raised our hands, we were prayed for, forgot about it, went back home that very same day. And I was not as saved as I am now then, you know. and we were coming that very same night. My friend and I, whom we had responded to the altar call with, we were coming from some places very late at night, and it at that time in Duduza there was the crime level was very high, and it was at a time where they would not just take things from you, but they would also kill you. So around that time, almost every weekend, somebody was killed by thugs. So it was like these thugs had to rob you and kill you. So it was that kind of a thing. So that night we met them. We met those guys. When we were from where we were coming from to home, we met the very same thugs.
From Groove.
Yeah, you could say, but I'm a man of God now, yeah. Yeah. So we met with the guys, they cornered us, took out the pangas and everything. They started searching us, and I don't know what happened as they were searching us. I don't know what happened. No, they started searching us. All of a sudden, they started hugging us. I kid you not, Then they started hugging us. They started telling us that we shouldn't walk at night. They accompanied us to home. And right there, when I got home, I was like, now, this is the hand of God. And you see, looking at it in retrospect, I could have died that day. Yeah, I could have died that day. And what's even worse, I saw their faces, I saw the people, but they started hugging us. They started telling us that we shouldn't travel at night. They walked us home. So that was like an opening of the sin, for me to see the hand of God. And that ministered to me, it really did minister to me when I was alone to say, hey, but like God, what happened? And when we told people couldn't even believe that. Fast forward, some point in my journey with God, I just want to bring a highlight of things that are like that stand out for me as I look back, in my journey with God. And I had finished my high school. I was studying in Damelin in Braamfontein, traveling to school. Using taxis, got involved in a terrible accident. There was a tire burst right there in the taxi. The taxi overturned more than 3 times. Got out unharmed. The only scratch I suffered was, where is it? This one here. Yeah. This is the only scratch I had. Got out of it. And that to me was a message to say, but my question also was like, why am I being saved? Why am I surviving? Because these are death-threatening situations, So it's been a journey. It's been a journey.
Every time the devil tries to have you, the Lord is just fighting,
And at that time, you are even ignorant that the enemy is trying to have you. You are even ignorant of it. Your commitment to the Lord is not that intense, but God still stands to you. It's intense, it's intense. So it was that kind of a thing. So I've seen God, man. I've seen God in my life, and that was not necessarily the end of it, And what's interesting, Nozne, is that the volume of his speech towards me was very high at that time. When I was shallow in my walk with him, he would do things that would make me really think when I'm alone. Say, what was that? I remember attending a God was teaching me about sacrifice and giving. That the language of the God responds to sacrifice. You can make commitments, but He also responds to your sacrifice as well.
Someone actually said, not so long, I was listening to someone saying that the language of the Spirit is sacrifice.
It's so true.
Yeah, sacrifice.
Yeah, that is so true. And the Lord was actually teaching me on that day around issues of sacrifice to say, I need you to be sacrificial. He was challenging my heart. There are a number of things in my journey that the Lord has challenged me in. At that time, He was challenging me particularly about the issue of giving. Yeah. So I went to a conference. It was a revival at night. Bought new shoes. Hey. new shoes and quite expensive at that time. They were proper shoes, bought new shoes and got there. I heard the voice of God saying everything was happening, and the Lord said, "No, give away your shoes." There was that spirit to give. Those revivals. When you get there, there's that you can give anything. You can give your watch. You can give anything. And that day, the Lord said, "You can give even your transport money." It was genuine. It was not fake. Yeah. And then the Lord said, "No, your shoes to the altar."
Sure. So, gave the shoes. I'm sure Lapovele, you were firefighting.
No, not quite. Not quite. I was actually battling the idea because is taking his stand. So I was battling the idea. While I was battling the idea, an usher or someone came and said, "The Lord said I must tell you to give your shoes." And that for me settled it. I had to take them out.
That time you don't have other shoes.
I don't have an alternative. But the very same night after the service, we had to accompany my cousin. She was at the VUT. She was studying there. So schools were opening the following day. So my other cousin came to fetch me to say, after the service, he came to fetch me to say, "Accompany me, I need to drop off so and so there." Then we went out. I had one other pair of shoes. Then we picked her up. So my cousin is coming to fetch me. We fetched our cousin. We're driving to the Val. So this guy didn't check the oil in the car, didn't check anything, right? Halfway to the Val, the car signals that the oil is finished. And when the oil is finished, it will damage the engine completely. Now, that very night, we are stranded in the middle of nowhere. Can't go back, can't go forward. It's very late at night. We are stranded. We don't know what to do, what should happen. From nowhere, a guy pulled off, and he said his name was Stuart. He took us, he went with my cousin to the garage, bought oil, came back, poured oil in the car, gave us extra money, disappeared.
Can I just say, I watched a video of a guy in America saying the same thing with the same name.
Stuart.
Yeah. And Stuart did the same thing.
Yes.
He took them to an image, like a garage that doesn't actually exist.
Yeah.
And then poured them petrol. And the Stuart guy kept saying, "I'm just here to help you. I was called to help you."
So what do you say? How do you contextualize? Exactly. That night we met, and he kept on emphasizing that my name is Stuart, and you know what Stuart means, being a steward of God's things.
Oh my gosh, I wouldn't have thought of that.
So that for me was another highlight. Now these things are building up, They're building up, and I'm looking into this thing, and it's the robbery, it's the accident, and now this, So I had to learn about the whole issue of giving, to say what you have, you are simply stewarding, you're simply managing it, And it was a lesson that I had to learn from a very supernatural perspective, or very, very true, because there was something that was not natural about that whole encounter. That entire encounter, even the character itself, when that guy came, he was not looking like your normal person that you would encounter on the streets, He looked like he came from the 80s with a big perm, like his sense of style was not relevant, So it was that kind of a thing that when when you have had a supernatural encounter, you would know something in you you will know. And you will be the only one who knows that what just happened here was not natural. And the thing is, you can't argue, you can't debate it. It's something that that this has happened. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. That is crazy.
Yeah.
And then you guys got to the Val.
We got to the Val, came back, and after that, the following day, of course, I started thinking to say, what is this?
These things, as they are happening, are they clutching into your spirit? Are you getting more and more intrigued by this God? And is your spiritual life growing? Are you now considering like your real pursuit and taking God seriously?
Of course, that's why I can still remember them now. Some of them happened like 10, 15 years ago, not even 10 years, maybe 18 years, 19 years ago. And they're still as clear in my spirit. And they have persuaded my call for the Lord. I didn't know that I was even remember I did say there was a lady who prophesied about my calling, but I didn't reconcile myself with that. I wanted to study economics and become an economist and do business and probably be an elder at a church and tithe and be faithful,
Not lead one.
No, not lead one.
I was
no, not even get the tithes, So that was a build up to, I'm not sure, a hallmark of all encounters that I've ever had. A hallmark of all encounters that I ever had. So yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
Rudy.
Yeah.
Hi, what an interesting journey. Yeah. So how did the whole pastoral thing come about? How did you get your calling? Were you called in your sleep?
Yeah.
How did that happen?
Firstly, all these things were happening, and I don't want to lie. I had not really fully committed to the Lord, but I loved Him. But there were other things that I felt that were not in place as they were supposed to. And time went on. I got to a place of frustration now because there was, even in the ministry where I was in at the time, it had been like maybe I had reached a ceiling in a way, wherein the story of God was now the same. Do you understand what I mean? And I got to a place where I needed intervention. I needed somebody to come and tell me something, So even the events around my life, that I was experiencing depression, things were not going well. I had finished my matric and all that, and nothing was happening. Nothing, literally nothing was happening. So I got to be introduced to a prayer called Adulam's Cave, So I was at a place where I'm a Christian, I love God, but it felt as though God is not there anymore, It felt as if He's not intervening, He's not saying anything. It was just still, And frankly, I had suicidal thoughts at that time, They were very strong because I felt like I'd reached the ceiling. Nothing is making sense anymore. Even this God whom I had encountered and whatnot was no longer there. It was now silent. So at that time, I got to be introduced to this prayer because I had taken a gap year or so. So I was introduced to this prayer. They called it the Cave of Adulam. It was led by Apostle Tshepo. So this other lady whom we were fellowshipping with told me that, hey man, there's a prayer, come. And I'm like, really? I'm a Christian, I go to church, you're gonna invite me to other prayers, what's new about it? And she kept on persisting to say, come. I think I went there after like 3 weeks or so, And at that time, my pastor was a man, like a big elderly man, with beard and matured man. That was my pastor. So I get invited to this prayer. I get there, and now I meet young guys. I meet boys my age, and they are ministering there. They say, this is Muruti, and I meet Muruti Kabelo Moroke for the very first time. And when I met him, he was very small, very, very playful also, And I was like, okay, let's go in. He was preaching that day, and I was sitting at the back in that service. And as he was ministering, it was like there was somebody who had given him a file of my life.
Yeah. Wow.
Every detail of what he was preaching there, it moved me so hard. And I'm asking if there are things that he even said there that the lady who had invited me couldn't have possibly known. As I said, I had at that time suicidal thoughts and whatnot. And after that service, I didn't even greet him or say anything to him. I went back home a new man. So I think at that time the Lord was starting another layer of my life. There was another season opening up in my life, And when I got home, my spirit was so open to God in a way I had never thought. I had a fresh encounter with God. The Lord spoke to me. Like that service was meant for me. I don't even think the people who were there, like you have no idea, Then I was now revived. I was now refreshed. I went the following day. I went until I got close to him actually. And now I got to understand that there's a calling of God over my life. I got to understand that I'm called. There's a prophetic call over my life and all those things. Everything. It was like now I'm living in a different world. I'm in another realm and I'm breathing different air because everything that he was revealing to me at that time, it was everything I needed to hear, And I remember at that time, the realm of the Spirit opened for me. The realm of the Spirit opened because now I was starting to put all my focus in the Lord, my time in the Lord. I remember that he said to us one day that let's separate from TV and seek the face of God. And there was some few separations that we had to do. I did that, and I did that diligently, And that time, that's when I experienced. That's when I then had a more like a face-to-face encounter with the Lord concerning my calling. I remember I would go into a taxi, right, and I was very. Like my prayer life was on a high note, like it was burning, highest frequency.
Sure.
Yeah.
So loaded.
Yeah. So the idea or the reason why I'm actually telling you about the text is to give you a perspective of my spiritual state at that time, to say it was so heightened, and as I was saying, it was that build up to the clarification of my calling so that I know where God is calling me and what he wants me to do. So I remember at that time I would get into a taxi and I was speaking to the passenger next to me, sharing the gospel. And when I was now leading him to the sinner's prayer, I then discovered that everybody in the taxi took Christ as the Lord and Savior. So when I got off, the people were saved and stuff, So yeah, it was event after event leading to the clarification of the fact that I'm called. And this is years before I even started the church. Years. Now, I remember I was cutting the grass at my sister's place with my nephew, and I'm busy cutting. And I hear my nephew screaming at the back. And when I hear him screaming, I'm turning to check what's happening. I find a very, very, very hobo-like looking man who looks like a hobo, dirty, unclean clothes. And I go there in defense of my nephew. Get there, I push him. In his response, he looks at me in the eye and he says to me, am I not supposed to know the truth? So the question was not even related to the sin. And that question came with an atmosphere that really got my attention to say something is happening here, Now I start to feel very remorseful of my reaction, and now I want to apologize. And he said to me, no, it's okay. I just wanted to know if I'm not supposed to know the truth. And then I was realizing that this is not a natural moment, And I guess that's what God was emphasizing, to say in your ministry, stick to truth, stick to truth, stick to the truth. So as I was standing there, then I disengaged to try and locate the nephew. I can't find him anymore. When I come back, turning my face back to the guy, he's no more. He's like gone, disappeared, That was just a season of encounters where at that time I would have dreams that would carry the same atmosphere, like you are dreaming. And as I was dreaming, I remember this particular one dream where I was dreaming I was in a more like a hill of some sort, but it was a hill that had green grass. It was green pastures. And in it, I'm seeing eagles, big eagles the size of this chair or even bigger, eating grass. And as they are eating grass, the voice of the Lord then said to me, I need you to focus on the prophetic ministry, teaching the truth. Greener pastures, is a symbol of life and whatnot. That's where the birthing of the prophetic ministry, Silwan Prophetic School, where we would do camps, train people in the prophetic, activate them, teach them the right doctrine pertaining the prophetic, because there was a lot of abuse happening in the body of Christ in as far as the prophetic is concerned. People were abused profusely also, so, and used as well, so those things were then clarified, and I got to understand that my calling has to do with the truth of the Word of God, that I should not deviate from truth, and that I should be bold enough to just speak the truth in love, and I've realized that I would go minister to places, and when I get to those places, my spirit would be very agitated, and I know that when I get there, we're going to fight. But I've developed an art of loving people unconditionally, so that it doesn't appear as though I have a personal vendetta or I have issues with the pulpit, and also I have issues with people when I'm in the pulpit, and also speaking the truth in love in a manner that helps people to come back to the Lord, not to chase them even further away from the Lord. Yeah. So those are the things that have been happening. Fast forward, I started the church. The name of the church is River Flow City Church. And then I had another episode where just before COVID or during COVID, I got very ill. I was diagnosed with a disease. It's an autoimmune disease. It causes the body to fight against itself. And in my case, my kidneys were not doing very well. I got to be admitted. And in that admission, I had another encounter with the Lord as well during COVID, where the Lord was now confronted. Now you must understand that I'm matured. Yeah. I'm now committed to the ways of the Lord. I'm no longer staggering in my faith or anything like that. And that sickness, I believe, for me, it was more of an isolation that the Lord was doing to me in order to speak to me, So in that time, level 5 COVID, I was in the hospital, hospitalized, no visitors, nothing, So the only thing I did was just to engage in prayer. And the Lord then challenged my perspective on issues around prayer. This is 2020, in the heart of COVID. He then spoke to me. Then there was another movement that was birthed called Watchmen Arise, where we had to do prayer camps. I remember when I came back from the hospital, I was like, I'm doing a camp, and people were like, how can you do a camp? And I think at that time, they had said that they are only allowing 60 people in an enclosed area. And then I did our first camp in 2000, I think in 2000 or in 2001. We had strictly said we want 60 people. We gathered there for prayer. There were principles that the Lord had been challenging me about regarding prayer, which I feel it's a story for another day. But we started really digging in and getting people to pray, getting God's people to pray. And people came in. There were amazing testimonies. I remember we would have bonfires in the morning. And then the Lord said to me, allow your people to write their prayer items. And then we would throw those prayer items in the fire. The next camp, when people would come, testimonies. I remember there was a lady who was supposed to go remove, there was an issue with her womb. And then she wrote, and then they were in the fire. And the next camp she came, testified that after camp she was supposed to go and be operated, and when she went back, the doctors couldn't find anything because that was a prayer item that we threw into the fire. So we are gradually growing into this godly thing. Yeah.
Sweet ears.
Yeah, sweet ears indeed. Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Wow. Power packed.
Yeah. So yeah, we would then run the school of prayer. We still are. And also, by the grace of God, I'm currently writing a book on the issue of the Watchmen Arise, which is the ministry. I just want to download all the principles that the Lord has taught me. But this is what I want to say, and I think it's important that I say it. To say we are in an age or in a season where everybody's speaking about encounter this, encounter that, and it then heightens people's appetites to say, we also want encounters, and you then find out that people are now pursuing encounters and not pursuing the God of encounters, and generally, I believe that our pursuit for God should not park at the things that we feel we have arrived at. I'm not sure if I'm making sense. We should not park at when we have achieved crowds. You understand? When you are a minister, now you have crowds, you park. You understand? When you are a minister, now you have the prophetic anointing, you park. When you have encountered angel, you park. There's danger in those parking spots, actually. So when you look into, which is one of the things that the Lord taught me, when you look into the book of Matthew, chapter 6, when Jesus teaches on prayer, they go to him and they say, Lord, teach us how to pray. And he says, when you pray, don't be like hypocrites. When you pray, go into the secret, right? And when you get into the secret, your Father who is in secret will reward you openly. So when you look into that particular scripture through the eyes of revelation, he's saying something deeper than what's on the surface, actually. Because what he's actually saying, he's saying, depart. The journey of prayer is a journey of constant departing, of constant separations, You can't be prayerful and remain. As you pray, you are separating. You are coming into a journey. So he says, when you pray, go. When you pray, take a journey. So a prayer, it's a journey. What Benny Hinn says concerning it, it's a journey of new beginnings, of constant new beginnings. Why is it a journey of constant new beginnings? Because in God, there are constant discoveries, constant encounters, but they are not parking lots. Do you understand? So you can't park at a place of encounter, but you journey into the secret. And that word secret is the word oracle. And that word oracle is the same word that was found in the Holy of Holies, right? Where the Ark of the Covenant is. So what is then prayer and what is all these things? As we encounter them, we are not parking there, but we are going into a place where we get to be completely absorbed and taken over by God. So the long and short of it is that in whatever it is that we are encountering, we don't park there. We park in finding God, like the woman with the issue of blood who pressed on to touch the hem of a garment. So our goal is to find ourselves in the mercy seat before the Father, which is a journey that will take you your entire life.
Wow, what a mouthful, what a power-packed show. Thank you so much for that,
Amen.
just sharing your story with us and reminding us how it's important to remember God, for when we are in different seasons. It's good to look back and say, but Lord, you did it for me. You took me through a journey, and and I'm able to remember and collect the stones again. It's also amazing how there's never a conclusion in God. It doesn't just end. It's ongoing. It's like you were saying, it's new beginnings after new beginnings. It's a different story. It's a new page, and it's a new. Everything is just anew. So we bless God for giving us this opportunity, an opportunity to give Him praise, to give him glory and to give him honor, even in our personal lives, even as we reflect and go back and think about our journey with God and just remember our steps in the Lord, so that we are able to because surely you probably feel like that right now with God, like you're stirred again. There's something about remembering that stirs both us and him, So thank you so much for tuning in. We love you so much. We thank you for our ever-growing community. We thank you for always choosing to plug in. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for liking, and we still ask for more likes, subscribe, and share. Can't wait to see you in the next episode. Are we gonna have it for part 2?
No,
please.
I'm available. Yeah.
Can't wait. Thank you so much, CBS family. Love you so much.